This is Rob Pirie with the Coffee Runs Deep podcast, where we interview coffee farmers, coffee roasters, and we share their stories. I truly hope you enjoy the experience.
Well, hey there. I know it's been a while. We took a little hiatus, but we're finally back. I apologize for my nasally voice in this episode, but it's packed with some great info. Tyler takes us on his journey of building out a new roastery and upgrading his roaster to a larger one. We discuss the family impact on the business, the customer service in Mill City, and much more. Truly hope you enjoy. Let's begin.
You got it.
Welcome to the Coffee Runs Deep podcast. I'm your host, Rob Pirie. And today's guest is my first repeat guest, Mr. Tyler Ellison with Storyline Coffee Roasters. So how's life been treating you, dude?
Man, Rob, I appreciate you having me on again. It's good to reconnect. Things have been really good for us, man. It's been a crazy season, just with a lot going on and a lot of exciting things and good things, and also just a lot of chaos. I think everyone, can relate to that to some degree. It's just been a lot of good, a lot of bad, and you just kind of take it in stride as it all comes. But coffee-wise, things are going really well, and so we're fortunate and blessed to be able to keep plugging and chugging at it, man. So it's been good.
Heck yeah, dude. Yeah, chaos sometimes it's stressful, but it keeps you young,
Yeah,
it keeps
exactly.
you young. So
Yeah, sometimes I feel like with the stress, I'm like, man, I sure feel like I'm like this is either gonna kill me early and I feel old because of it, or but at the same time, yeah, you're absolutely right. With everything going on, you definitely stay on your toes. So, but yeah, man, things have been good. We I think kind of last time we talked about the bullet roaster and kind of where we were at, and
yeah,
I
that's
think
where you were at last time I spoke with you. I think you had the little bullet, and I think you were talking about getting two, but then looks like you
Yeah.
decided to go a different route.
Yeah, and so I kind of consulted some people. I actually reached out to someone who had two bullets, and just like messaged them on Instagram and was like, hey, like, how do you like it? And they had kind of said that, it's great, but it's difficult to manage two, you've got two roasts going at one time, and then you've got two cooling, and so it's just kind of, it seemed like a lot to be managing, and capacity wise, it doubled capacity, but for the headache kind of in the process of that didn't totally feel worth it. So we kind of, it got to the point where, our subscription had grown a lot, which has been cool. We, I think, are the only people that do like content with our subscription. And so, our subscribers get like, I do a write-up and a video about different topics. Like we just covered at-home espresso and machines and how to dial an espresso. And so I do like a write-up and video content. So that grew and was kind of taken off, which has been awesome. And I've been able to, just kind of like consult and help some roasters and people that are like looking to get into coffee through that subscription. So that's been a cool kind of connection point to people that are like, hey man, I want to do this as a hobby, maybe as a business. And so some of them even have sent like half roasted coffee and half green coffee so they can see like, hey, this is how I roasted it. Here's some coffee that you can roast it. I share like roast graphs with them
That's cool.
from the bullet. And so, yeah, it's been fun just to kind of like connect with those people. So that was going well. And then our wholesale was growing. And so it kind of just got to this point like, man, I'm spending a lot of time on this little bullet roast. And if we want to keep going, we've got to do something. So we kind of shied away from the two bullet idea, and I started looking at other roasters. I think I'd even reached out to you at one point or watched your video about the roaster you had. And so I just started looking at all these different options for roasters, and kind of fell on Mill Cities, and I really just started emailing a bunch of people like, hey, and calling people like, hey, I'm interested. We were kind of looking at the like 5 to 10 kilo range for roasters, just because that felt like a good range to be able to do like 20-ish pounds to like 10 to 20-ish pounds, kind of in that range at a time, felt like it would meet our needs currently, but still give us space to grow. So yeah, in price wise, honestly, like that was kind of where we could hopefully make it work. So
Yeah, they
anyways,
jump up so quick.
yeah, man, it and even now, like, um, one of the things I love, we ended up falling on a Mill City 6 kilo roaster. What I love about their roasters is, um, like Diedrich's, which I've roasted on prior, they typically want you roasting at like 75% of your batch weight. And so, you get a 10 kilo roaster, but 75% of that's like a 7 kilo essentially. And so you don't really get the full capacity out of it. With Mill Cities, I'm actually roasting like 7 kilos at a time on their 6 kilo roaster. So it's actually like 110%, which has been awesome.
Oh, wow.
So I roast like 14 pounds at a given batch and get like, 11 out, 11, 12 pounds out, actually, like 12. But anyway, so that's been awesome. Just capacity wise for the price has been really great that they're able to do that. So that's kind of what we landed on. And yeah, it was a crazy process getting to it. I think we started our search in like February, March time, and then it came the end of May, which is like peak season out here for us. Um, so it was a lot of like getting everything ready so that we were off to the races
And
for
that was this
summertime.
year?
Yeah.
That's actually not bad for this year because like
Oh,
it seems like the supply chains have been pretty jacked up. So I'm
totally.
surprised you even got it that quick.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
there was a lot of places that were like, like, yeah, I mean, all like, I think Diedrich was especially hard. I think all of their roasters, like, they were a year or two out type deal.
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, but yeah,
Yeah,
Mill
like
City, I was able to snag one of theirs, which was great. And um, yeah, it worked out really well. And their like customer service honestly was like really awesome. So I guess I guess I'll talk about the build out and then I'll talk about the onboarding just so it kind of makes a sequential sense. But um, so finding a space was like tough, because the reality is like the roaster itself isn't that big in the space that it takes up. And so I was like, man, like all I need is someone like to have a warehouse that says like, hey, you can use that corner and like go ahead.
right.
um, and so in theory, I was like, man, it'll be super easy. I can find a space, but you've got a vent, and so you're talking about, yeah, do you mind, me drilling a hole in your ceiling and
Mm-hmm.
all that kind of stuff. So we actually ended up, it kind of looks like a tiny home essentially. It's like a 200 square foot structure, and we ended up just buying that, um, which worked out really great for us. And so we rented, so we leased some land and electric from a guy, and he said, hey, you can put that structure here, and you've got an electric hookup. And um, then it was just like me building out the actual, like, I insulated, drywalled, and did all that kind of stuff. I had an electrician do the electrical part of it. So yeah, that was kind of like what we settled on, and I am glad we did that. What's nice about the structure is it's fairly easy to move. Like if I wanted to put it somewhere else, I could do that,
Yeah.
which worked out well. And also owning the space is nice that like you don't have to worry about rent changing, things like that, and whatever else, or a business being like, hey, we're gonna move to this space. And so the new people may or may not want you in there or whatever. So it worked out well. The space requirements of a Mill City 6 kilo roaster isn't anything too crazy. I think it's like 18 feet by like 6 or 7 feet, and I could be off on those numbers. Those are just guesstimates, but it's nothing like space wise super crazy that you need. And so, yeah, it worked out pretty good. I
What's
just
that
kind of,
space requirement for? Like the heat or something from it?
yeah, I think they like
Like
that's all of
ventilation?
their, yeah, all their
Yeah.
ventilation, the like buffer space of like how far you have to have it from a wall. And then, yeah, we bought their venting kit that came with it. So they give you all the parts that
Oh, nice.
um, come, so everything except the, from your chaff collector out to the roof, they do all of that kind of from your chaff collector to your roaster. It was super easy. It was just kind of plug and play. The instructions were pretty easy. They're just all snap-on piping. So, um, which makes cleaning super easy also, which I was a big fan of. Because essentially you just undo a clamp and can take off any of the sections. So that worked out well, and bought the other venting, and then finished drywall and everything, and got it all done. And space wise worked out pretty good. I've got a table in there, and space for green coffee storage, and there's like a little loft on top that I keep, like, we do coffee like in jars, and so that's kind of where we keep some like dry storage and stuff, and it works out pretty good for us. So
Yeah, that's actually, this is what my little building is. It's a little like portable building, where you can
oh
kind of move
yeah,
them around. That's what I built
yeah,
out too. It's 12 by 32 or something like that. But
yeah, it's awesome.
what because that's actually what I'm like thinking about doing as well. But like I kind of
Mhm.
spent all my money on building it, so now I gotta save back up for the roaster or whatever. But
Yeah, man.
um,
No, it looks great, man. I
yeah.
mean,
So
you must
what
be.
is yours width wise? Probably about 12 foot, or yours a little
It's
wider?
it's a 10 by 20. So
10 by
it's 10
20.
feet.
Okay.
Yeah, 10 feet wide and 20 feet long. So
Yeah. So you're right at
200 square
200
feet.
square feet then. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's small, but like honestly, I mean, I don't, for a roasting space, like if you have tons of green coffee storage, like yeah, you may want a bigger space, but at the same time, like, we just buy, we don't buy like pallets and pallets of coffee at a time.
Right.
And so we don't have an insane amount of coffee that takes up a bunch of space. And so it works out pretty well. We just kind of rotate through coffees as we roast them, and it works out space wise pretty good. But
Yeah. You
yeah,
can
man,
stack it
looking at,
up pretty
if you're
high
in,
too.
are you in the space you built out right now?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Oh
I'm I'm in
man,
here. Yeah.
awesome. You're way handier than I am. Because if I was, I mean, it looks good, but like I'm handy enough to like I did it, but uh yours
Oh,
looks awesome.
I didn't do the I didn't do the mudding and all that. I don't know how to do the I can do sheetrock, but I can't float. So somebody else did all the floating and everything.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's the thing, and I didn't do the electrical either because I'm not an electrician. But
yeah,
yeah, the small things I did, and
for sure.
rest I'll will sub out.
Yeah,
So
no, I feel that. I was gonna have someone tape in mud for me, and just we got time crunch, and so I did it myself. You know, again, it's like it's a roasting space, so at the end of the day, like I'm not living in it, so I don't have to stare at it all the time. Like,
yeah, and
see
that was
every
the other
crack
thing
that I
too.
screwed up.
Like because I was going to kind of be doing the podcast. Eventually, I want to do like like in person podcasts and stuff like that in
Oh,
here.
cool.
So
Yeah,
I don't know. I told him I kind of want to look somewhat decent. I didn't want to be in there trying
yeah.
to experiment my first time. So
I I feel
but
yeah. I went the experiment route, and it shows, but
but you
it's
learn
good.
a lot, too. That's the other
Oh,
thing too, and that's this whole thing for me. It's like it's
mhm.
just building out something and figuring out how everything works, and
Yeah,
I don't know. I
absolutely.
like it. So
Yeah. So yeah, we built out the space, and like I think I had finished everything like a day or two before, and then the roaster comes. I rented like and what was really cool was kind of through the process of building out the space. Mill City was great in just like I mean, one, they're super easy to get a hold of. So like you call them, and like they transfer you to one of their service techs, and you can talk through like, hey, trying to figure out if I should do natural gas or propane, like what regulators do I need for propane, what natural gas, and they'll just kind of like talk through and work through all that with you. And their customer service was like truly, I was pretty impressed by it, just with the level of like one, ease of access. Like it drives me crazy when I have to press like 17 buttons before I talk to a human.
yeah,
Um, and so like you call them, a human answers, and they transfer you to another human. I love that. Just the simplicity of that. But yeah, I mean, they talked through, a big thing for me was trying to figure out like gas of what I was going to use. Because I ended up going with propane, which is just super easy and
and it's
mobile
clean.
essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah, clean, and you don't have to have like a natural gas hookup. Um, and what's nice with the Mill City too is it comes with the natural gas orifices, and so I just added on the propane. So if I ever switch or move it, I can always go back to natural gas. But yeah, I mean, they talked through like space requirements with me. They talked through um, like venting. They gave me recommendations for people to um, reach out to for the venting that would go out of the chaff collector and up. And so, um, and they really were like willing to kind of troubleshoot specific problems that I had. Like I had a propane supplier actually call someone from Mill City, and they talked through like what requirements, like what the propane guy could do and what Mill City required. And so like they were willing to even have a local guy from BV call them. And so
That's
it was
cool.
just cool. Yeah, it was cool just to see that they were, like really did genuinely care about their customers and making sure that I was situated and taken care of for when that roaster came. And I guess kind of backing up also was financing. So we had to be able to afford the machine in the first place. And
Did you
so,
finance the build out, or did you kind of just saved up for that?
yeah, so I had saved up we bought the building itself with cash. And then, so that I didn't finance. I did finance the roaster itself, which was kind of like, I started looking at like small business loans. I started looking at like personal loans and just kind of all kinds of stuff. And just, again, I think a lot of my mentality when I make a decision was just like spray and pray and see what sticks and what works out best. And it worked out well. I started like going through some processes for small business loans, and um, I think anytime that you get a loan, it's just like a daunting process.
Yeah.
They want like W-2s and they want like bank accounts and all this stuff in like business information, and like, are you going to finance it on your personal side or business side? And it can be kind of a lot to work through. And when I reach out to Mill City, they actually have a company that they work with specifically for leasing, and it was like a piece of cake. Um, and so I'd kind of done all that work prior to reaching out to Mill City and like pulling the trigger with them. And once I said like, hey, I think I want to do the 6 kilo, they're like, okay, well, reach out to Pacific Leasing, and they'll handle all the like. And it was a breeze, which honestly I think for people that are kind of like looking to take that next step is just a huge like weight off their shoulders, or at least it was for me. Just that, man, this company works directly with Mill City, and they were able to get us approved and financed like really quickly and easily, and it was way stress free. And what was nice too was that they were super used to just communicating with the company, and so there was no like issues on amounts or down payments or anything like that. And so it was like we had put some money down towards that, but it was like $26,000, I think, for the roaster itself. And yeah, I mean, our monthly payments affordable, which is nice. We got like a 5-year deal on it, and yeah, our monthly payment was ended up being around like $400, and so it wasn't anything that like we couldn't manage from the bullets kind of sales and stuff and what we had been doing. And so I'm a big proponent of like out outgrow your current space. And I say that kind of with a caveat. I think when you make an initial big purchase like that, you want to have space to grow. You don't want to like quickly outgrow it and have to get another roaster. But on the small scale of like bullets, I'm a huge proponent of like, hey, if this is a hobby and business for people, like get something small, start going to farmers markets, start, you know, getting your name out there, get some wholesale accounts, get your retail going, and then get money flowing in so that then you can kind of outgrow that with some cash flow ideas of like, hey, I have this idea in business I want to do, but is it viable? So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I think everybody realizes pretty quickly that cash flow is like the most important thing, and until you have cash flowing in, it's really hard to make decisions, kind of going forward. I do want to ask though, on the loan, for like the 5-year your payments, did they start whenever the roaster shipped, or did they start whenever you like put money down to start having the roaster built? Because that's one of those
yeah.
things too. If you're waiting a year and you put
Mhm.
up a bunch of money, you're paying a note like before you ever even get your roaster. So
Totally. So
yeah.
yeah, we didn't have to pay anything until the roaster was at our facility,
Okay, cool.
which was awesome. So, and what was also cool too was like we could track and see like where our roaster was the whole time. And so like we could see it coming overseas, we could see it landing in Mill City. They um they also size their venting kit specifically to your roaster, so that it's like a essentially a perfect fit, which is nice. So you don't have any like air gaps of like, because there's I'm imagining with manufacturing, like there's probably slight minute differences, and with airflow, they like fit the venting kit specifically to it, which was great. And then once they ship it from Minneapolis to you, your payment starts like once FedEx says like, hey, it's delivered. So, which saves you a ton because, yeah, I mean, like it is kind of a scary thing with if you're paying out a bunch of money every month and you're not able to generate income from the investment you just made, it
Yeah.
can be pretty daunting. So it worked out good for us. But
Yeah, because I've heard of some others getting into that issue where it's like, the roaster's a year plus out and they're already making payments on a
yeah,
roaster that they don't even have, and you can't make any money on yet. So yeah,
yeah,
definitely if
yeah,
anybody's thinking of buying something, definitely check all that before you
for
make the
sure.
decision.
Especially,
So
yeah, because I think like when we were doing it, there was a lot of supply chain issues with like the ports and things like that. And so um, that was kind of in happening and whatnot. And so, they said like, hey, we're going to have some here at like the end of May or end of April, beginning of May to Minneapolis, and then it'll be to you by the end of May. That all, their timeline was exactly right. I think we got it like May 26th or 27th or something. And we were off to the races. So,
oh wow.
yeah, yeah, it worked out good. They, they go through kind of all the details, even too, of like, hey, this is the equipment you need to rent, like get a narrow pallet jack, you need to rent like a forklift. Here's the forklift that we recommend. And so they make it really simple, and like Mill City really takes a lot of the guesswork of like, there's a lot of minute details like you just don't like, I would never think about like, oh yeah, I'm about to get like a super heavy machine dropped off to me, and like they're not going to put it in my building for me. And
Yeah.
so like, what do I rent, what do I need, like those little details that Mill City's really, I think, worked pretty hard to kind of answer every question that's kind of come up so that like you don't have to think about it. Made the process with them super easy, and worked out pretty good. um, it was super stressful. Our bullet, like I literally think it was the day before our Mill City roaster came, like stopped working, and I had like a bunch of wholesale accounts that like needed coffee the next day. And anyways, it was the best and worst timing, I guess. Um, I got roasted through like the majority of what I needed to, got out my orders, and I was like, all right, hope this thing works because we're off to the races. So but yeah, it was a pretty seamless transition from the Mill City, or from the bullet to the Mill City. And getting in there was super stressful, but because you're like teetering a 1,000-pound machine and whatever else. But
Yeah.
we got it in and got it situated, and yeah, it all worked out. So
Yeah, you
um,
definitely don't want to drop it.
yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. There was there were some times that I was, once it was like on the ground on all fours, was like just such a relief because you put a lot of time and effort and thought into it. And um it happened pretty quickly. I think we were on the podcast together last time, and I was kind of in that phase of like, I think you ended with like, well, what's next step for you? And I was like, man, I don't know yet. Then it was kind of like, all right, like let's do this thing. And before you know it, we're off to roasting on the 6 kilo. So
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It was like a few months later, and I saw on Instagram you had like a new Big Mill City, and I was like, "What the heck, dude?
yeah, I know.
You moving
Yeah,
up quick?"
it happened quick. And um yeah, it's pretty, it's awesome. I mean, those new machines really are like, just like everything. What I do enjoy about the Mill City is it's still a like not everything's automated, but there's a lot that kind of like, you open up the tray and dump your hot coffee in, and it automatically starts the cooling arms and fan, and then you open up that and it stops so there's a lot that's automated with it. It comes with its own software. And yeah, it's been just it's so nice because you think like, man, I was doing like a pound at a time prior, 2 pounds at a time. And before that, it's like, man, I can roast like 12 pounds at a given time and in the same amount of time. And, it makes a huge amount of difference for us and has
Oh
opened a
yeah.
lot of doors for us to kind of be able to grow and look into more wholesale accounts, be able to focus on our subscription and things like that. We just we just hired a production roaster, so I'm in the process of training her, which has been a lot of fun. Um, because you get to take like I think I figured out I've been roasting for like 7 or 8 years now. So I've got a lot of roasting is a unique thing, as you know. Like there's a ton of science and stuff that goes into it, but so much of it is just like you get a feel for it. Like it's
Yeah.
trial and error, and you just kind of like you got to trust your gut with it. And you don't really realize that until you're like training someone on how to roast. You're like, it's cool to start seeing her be able to like, she gets a feeling like, hey, I should probably like, chill out my gas here to keep my rate of rise even. And so you start, kind of quickly picking up those gut feelings, I guess, or traits of like what you want the roast to do. And so yeah, I'm excited to get her kind of fully going and be able to step into a little bit different of a role and more like quality control, focus more on the subscription and videos and content that we're getting out, as well as like really servicing our wholesale accounts well, to make sure that they're happy and providing a good service and stuff for them. So,
Do you do more wholesale or like subscription type sales, or is it about 50/50?
um, like money wise is definitely, um, I mean, they definitely feed each other, I guess I would say, but like money wise, I think we're probably like 75/25, I would say. Wholesale 75 and 25% being our subscription. Um, yeah, we do a decent amount of wholesale in just like supplying different shops with coffee and for like the small town we have, there's a lot of coffee shops here, which is great. Or a lot of places that do coffee also. And so we've been able to, there's been a couple new shops that I've tried to like help essentially like onboard them. And I've done some like consulting and training for them, which has been a lot of fun too, of just like, hey, here's what I'd recommend for your coffee supply. Here's some like coffee knowledge of like origins and, processing methods and varietals and all that kind of stuff and why that matters to your end customer and what I think your baristas should know and, or at least be able to answer if people care to ask. And then, Catherine, the girl that I hired, has a lot of like behind bar experience with pulling shots of espresso, doing latte art, and steaming milk and stuff. Um, so for people that are kind of like new shop owners, we are able to kind of help train them and get them some knowledge of like, hey, I've got tons of experience on roasting and origins and processing methods and all that kind of stuff, and she has a lot of experience behind bar, and so training wise, it's been fun. So to be able to kind of step into shops and help them out. So.
Heck yeah, dude. Do you plan to go back into a coffee trailer anytime soon or anything, or get like a
Oh,
cafe in
yeah,
the future, or are you like more
that's a good
just the roasting side now?
yeah, it's a good question. I've always, I think you asked me that last time too, and I've had some opportunities to kind of step into like a shop and things like that. Um, I do really love um, being able to roast coffee, drop it off, and like service our wholesale clients really well. And make sure that they can kind of like tailor their coffee program to what they want to see in the coffees that they want to get in. And so, if they're looking for specific like single origin espressos, making sure that we get them a great single origin espresso that they can have. Um, so I don't know, man. I think it would be if I met the right person that wanted to do a shop, and like needed someone with the roasting experience, I would love to be able to like partner with someone that like their passion is running a cafe and having good baristas and like doing a really high quality shop. I would love to like partner with someone that that's their expertise. Um, I'm a total yes man and love to. Uh, I'm always got too many ideas up in my head. So,
I hear
but
you.
I've learned as I've gotten a little bit older and stuff that do what you're really good at and become an expert in what you are really good at and partner with people that have a different expertise that's their wheelhouse and that they crush. Um, there's a coffee shop out here that does in Colorado Springs that does, I think he did a beautiful job of like hiring experts in each of the fields. Like, hey, you're an expert barista and we're really great at training people. Like, hey, you're a great production roaster. Hey, you do really awesome at like building community oriented spaces. Like, so he built a really great team around him. Um, and so yeah, I kind of take that philosophy. Like if I found the right person to partner with, I think I would say yes. But right now, man, I'm loving just growing our wholesale and subscription, and hoping that those two things continue growing and been doing those things well. So
Heck yeah, dude.
yeah, man.
Heck
So
yeah. Real
yeah,
quick, the education and stuff that you're talking about doing, like for the subscriptions,
yeah,
like what does that entail, and like what kind of got you into the education stuff?
yeah. That's a good question. I think a lot of it was I had a lot of people that like knew I was a coffee freak, and I would get like texts from people saying like, "Hey man, what would you recommend for an espresso machine?" Or, "Hey, like, what coffee would you recommend for this?" Or like, um, and I always loved like kind of the reason behind storyline in the name of it is just that like we love the story of coffee and the like so many hands touch it, um, from the farmers to the processors and millers to getting here. And so there's a lot that goes into coffee that I think is fascinating. And I relate a lot of things to like wine and like varietals and things like that. And so I was always passionate about like sharing that. And so I think it just kind of naturally came about. Um, I had a conversation with a guy who um, kind of gave me the idea of just like, hey man, I think like education is like a huge opportunity. And so I just kind of ran with it. And yeah, it's been awesome. I think people get a lot out of like being able to get a coffee, learn about that coffee, and then also just be able to like dive into really anything from like pour over methods and espresso to agitation and just kind of all kinds of stuff. Um, so yeah, like I do a full like write up on the content and send that out to them in an email, and then I do like a 6 or 8 minute video that kind of goes through the topics. And so, and then also with that, so there's kind of like two levels to our subscription. One level is just the coffee and content, and then there's another level where we send out like coffee gear. And so I'll do like a scale or pour overs or um, we've done all kinds of stuff. WDT tools. I mean, we've kind of sent out like hats, beanie. I mean, so that's been fun too because I've been able to tie in like the gear also with the content. So like if I send out a French press, I'll do like that week's content will be on some tips, tricks, and techniques to do for like a French press as to like how I do the French press and how I think it's better. And um, so it's fun to kind of be able to tie it all in together. And so if there's level one subscribers that have gotten that French press, they then get a video. They're like, oh, I can try this new recipe with the French press, and here's actually like what's happening in the bloom on a French press I recommend, and ways to not get sludge into it and things like that. Um, and even as complex as like the last week we did was like how to dial in espresso at home. And so,
That's so
talking through
cool,
that.
dude.
Yeah. So it's been fun. I think like there's a lot of people that, I feel like everyone does a coffee subscription, and I think we're the only ones that kind of do content with it. Um, so people are able to, you know, get something out of it with their coffee, whether that be like, hey, we did an experimental process coffee, and let's talk about the experimental processing method that we did with that of like double fermentation. What does that do? Um, and so, yeah, it's fun. I think our subscription has gained some traction, and just people have found a lot of value from it, and people have reached out of just like, hey, a lot of it is like, hey, heard you on the Coffee Runs Deep podcast, and you know, appreciated your vulnerability on the podcast or whatever, and I'm thinking about starting I had a guy just reach out and said like, I'm about to retire and want to have like a retirement hobby.
Sorry.
No, you're good, man. That head cold's no joke.
No, I know.
But
Good.
yeah. So, anyways, it's fun just to like connect with those people of like, I again love to save people. A lot of this is just like learning from other people's mistakes, and I've made a lot of them through the years. And so if I can save someone headaches of like, hey man, this is what I've learned that it's worth your time and money and effort, and what's worked for me and what hopefully will work for you, or so it's been cool just to be able to connect with people and hopefully be able to help them along in their journey. And you know uh, storyline was always kind of built on the idea that like coffee has a story and we care about people's story, and so just being able to get to know people and be a resource to them and reach out, and yeah, it's been a fun process. So
Yeah, and I think that's the thing because people ask about if is coffee profitable or whatever to be in, and
yeah,
it's like there's jobs that pay well that you may not like, but the way I
totally,
look at coffee is like I really enjoy roasting and stuff, so like
totally,
if I ever can even make somewhat of a living at it, that I
yeah,
would be happy, like I don't have to make what I'm making now
right,
being as stressed out as something that I don't really like doing. So I
totally,
mean, it's
yeah,
like, what do you want in life? If you're planning to be rich, I don't know if coffee roasting is the way to go,
yeah,
but unless you
totally.
have some big investors and can go big right off the bat. But
Yeah, no,
yeah,
absolutely. And I think if you do coffee right, there's definitely money to be made. Do I ever think people are gonna be like, oh, if I own a shop and roast, like, then I can like, man, I don't know if you're ever gonna be rich from coffee, but I think you can. I completely agree with what you just said, man. Like there's a lot of value of like coffee shops where people connect with one another and come to do work or meet with others. And there's a lot of like I'm super passionate about creating something that people are excited about. I get a ton of value and worth from just like, man, I'm super excited about this coffee I brought in and that I've roasted it, and that like people are able to be like, man, I loved that coffee. And like that means the world to me that I can. And so I think that's what I do love about wholesale is like I'm able to supply a shop with the ability to have someone come in and be like, oh my gosh, like I love your coffee, like it's totally different and whatever. And so it's cool hearing kind of the feedback from the shops that we supply coffee with of just like, man, people are raving about your coffee, and like that to me is like what makes it worth doing. And there's definitely money to be made. But I agree, like if I love doing what I do, and um, it's able to help support my family. And at the end of the day, like that's what matters to me, man. If I can do something I love and you know have a roof over my head and a happy family at the end of the day, I'm a happy guy. So
is this your full-time thing now?
it's not. So I am still a I actually, man, this has been a crazy season. So we just had our second kid, our house flooded. I just promoted to detective, and we grew our coffee business, and so it has been a whirlwind. But so I'm still a now a detective for the sheriff's office out here, and I do love what I do there. I don't know if I'll ever leave, but um, the side hustle and just being able to like hire a staff member to where I can be cupping with her, and hopefully she's a better roaster than I ever was or will be. And um, but there's a lot of things that I think I was not able to do just because of time of like orders and our subscription and all that kind of stuff that like I really wanted to be tweaking roast and doing cuppings and making sure like things were exactly where I wanted them to be. And I just was like, um, I listened to a podcast and they talked about like, how do you know when it's time to like hire a staff member? And the answer that she gave was essentially like, well, if you're thinking about it, it's probably time. Two, if you're not doing things that you should be doing, it's definitely time. And as long as you can afford it, like, why not? And so um, that just made a ton of sense to me. Like, man, there's things that like I should be spending more time on that I'm not. And so yeah, we had it was actually she worked at one of the shops that we supplied coffee to, and she left that shop and had reached out to me like, hey, I love what you do, and if you ever like have an opportunity, I'd love to jump on board with you. And it's worked out great. So
Yeah,
um
dude.
yeah, so yeah, it is not my full-time gig now. um I guess if it ever replaced my salary, maybe, but I do find a lot of value in um serving people and protecting people, and being a detective's a ton of fun. So I do love what I do. So
Yeah, I think a safe thing, especially nowadays, is just having, building something on the side that is yours that you do control. Because, like,
yeah,
dude, life is crazy. You never know when you're going to walk in one day and,
that's
things
it.
change. So
Yeah,
at least you always
absolutely.
have that fallback that is yours that you control. That
Totally, man.
could continue on. Do you have a number, like if you ever do hit that number, like roasting
Yeah,
that you would kind of step out or what?
I mean, maybe, I don't, I have like I mean, I have a number in my head, but like it feels lofty. Like if I could make six figures from coffee somehow, I'd
Yeah,
probably step away.
yeah,
I don't know if that's even possible, um, but I think like, and I think COVID really showed people like, man, it feels like just tons of small businesses started up during COVID because I think people were at home and like working remotely and stuff. And I think a lot of people like lost their jobs or weren't able to work in that. And so they needed something. And so I think there's a lot of small businesses that started up, and like you said, man, having multiple streams of income. And I think that's what I love about the wholesale side of things is like the time for return is really good. Um, like I get a $400 or $500 order of coffee a week, and it doesn't take me an insane amount of time to roast that coffee and deliver it to them. And so, if you're a coffee shop, like you're open for probably 8 hours to make, 500, $1,000 or 1,500, $2,000, whatever it is. And so it's, for me, it's time and return, and wholesale makes a lot of sense for that. Like, which is what I love about the education piece of the subscription is I can do a 8-minute video and a write up and get that out to 25, 30 people, and they get our coffee and can get some value out of that. And so um, yeah, I think as you get busier and busier and have kids and everything else, like your time becomes more and more valuable. So
yeah. It's
making
all
sure
about
that,
that time. That second kid
yeah.
is no joke, too, dude.
Yeah, I know. You have 3 kids, is that right?
I have three, but I think going from one, well, obviously going from 0 to 1 is like, it changes
Earth
everything.
changing.
One
Yeah,
to
yeah,
two, 1 to 2 is pretty difficult because it's like you both always got to be involved, it seems like. And then from
yeah.
2 to 3, it was just like a little bit more. It was just like
Interesting.
it's just like it's a
Okay.
little bit more chaos.
Yeah, we're thinking about 3 kids. For me, two feels like you're still playing man defense. Three, you
Yeah.
got to be playing zone. So
Yeah.
for me, it feels like I felt like okay, two's manageable. It's definitely difficult because like we have a 2-year-old, or she's about to be two, and then a newborn, and so like it's and listen, like I tell my wife this all the time. Like my job as a detective at coffee roaster is difficult. Like no doubt, like I see things and have to do stuff, but like, man, like I don't know how you do what you do,
Oh
like
yeah.
because it's way harder. Like, what she does and taking care of kids and raising them and all that. I'm like, man, like I feel like I multitask fairly well, but like I don't know how you get everything done you do. So
Yeah.
she's the
No,
same.
after a whole weekend of like watching the kids like on my own or something, if she goes like back to visit family,
Yes.
like Monday at work is like a vacation. I sit down and it's
Yes.
quiet and I'm like, man, this is
Yeah.
nice. This
I
is
could
nice.
not I could not agree more, man. It's just like, man, I do not envy what you do day to day, Amber, because
Yeah.
and she helps out a lot. Like she does all of our bags and our labels, and she delivers a lot. And also she did our chai, so like we supply coffee shops with chai, and like she did that recipe that she did from scratch, and it's like a powder based chai, and um, that's a great seller for us. And so, yeah, man, she's heavily involved, and she does it all, man. I don't envy what she does. But
Yeah. Kids will definitely focus you too, because like I always
mm,
wanted to start a business, like,
yeah,
all through my 20s, but it wasn't until I had like my first kid that like it actually started all coming together, and like
right.
then I started it and then I started YouTube. It's like you start to prioritize things differently because different streams of revenue, all this stuff is like this stuff you didn't
Yeah.
really care about before, but now that you got kids and stuff, I don't know, it just makes you push a little bit harder. I feel like I don't even know if I would have started YouTube or started
Mm,
coffee or anything
yeah.
like if I wouldn't have had kids. I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's weird to think about things like that, but
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And I think, there's a lot of benefits, and I think like with Mill City and like our monthly payment and the like it's just made a lot of sense for us, and like it's a good additional revenue stream for us that like is manageable on the side. It's not like a um I think sometimes when people think like, oh, I gotta start a business, like that means I'm like quitting my job. And for some people, like my wife and I did that. We quit our jobs and jumped into coffee full time, and it definitely can be successful. And I'm super glad we did that. We learned so much from it, but it is manageable to have like a side hustle and be really passionate about that. And I think that gives me a lot of efficacy that like, hey, I've got this thing on the side that I'm passionate about and I can fall back on, like you said, if things hit the fan and all of a sudden I don't have a job, and it's good. So
yeah, the biggest thing I feel is like you just got to be super patient whenever you're working full time and you have a
yep.
family, because I talked to some other people and they like they're wondering how you do it, and it's like you're not going to be able to do it as fast as the 23-year-old who's just starting out, and
Yeah.
he can go all day because that's what he's doing, but
Yep.
if you got a full-time job and a family and everything like that, like you're just going to have to be content and happy with your small little progress, do a
Yeah.
step. And then now I'm going to have to wait months and months and months until I save up enough for a down payment for a roaster, so it's like
Yeah.
you
Absolutely.
just got to be content with it. So
Yeah, and man, I think like I tell people this all the time. Like, I think the number one key to success is just to keep doing it.
yeah.
I mean, so much of it is like, and again, there's always caveats, but like if what you're doing is not working and it's never going to work, it's never going to work. But if you're making progress, so much of success, I think, is just like not giving up. Like
Right.
there's times that I'm like, the last thing I want to do is go, I have a long day at work and we got a wholesale order in randomly in the middle of the week. And I'm like, the last thing I want to do right now is go roast. But the reality is, it's like, it's all perspective. Like, hey, I get to do this. I love doing this. And if I keep at it, like, there's so much of success, I think, is just like continue moving forward. And if it's baby steps or leaps and bounds, like, I think a lot of it is things will begin to happen and doors will open if you keep taking steps for them. So,
Yeah.
no, that's kind of what I've seen. So,
No, I definitely agree with that. And
yeah.
last thing I'm kind of curious about is your glass jars.
Yeah.
What why do you choose the glass jars? Is it the not
Totally.
doing the plastic stuff or
So they are plastic. We started so back when we had SIP, we did glass jars for all of our local stuff, and the couple reasons. One is like, so the reason we went to plastic instead of glass on that was like shipping and things. Like you
It's
can't
heavy.
ship glass. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
heavy, it breaks. Um, and so for our local people, it was cool. And a couple reasons. One, like it's reusable. And so we have a lot of local people that like they're super sturdy, like thick plastic. And so like we reuse and like we'll sanitize the jars and reuse them. So it like cuts down on waste a ton for us, which is cool. That's something we care about too. Like it's just unique product. There's very few people that like do coffee in jars. And so it presents well. It kind of like stands out on a shelf if you have a bunch of bags of coffee and you see a jar, it catches your eye. And so those are kind of the two biggest reasons we did it. We wanted to go back to it. We had done it a while back, and um, yeah, it's a cool thing that just looks different, and it helps us cut down on waste a bunch for people that are here locally, that we can kind of cycle through jars and change the labels, and yeah, it works out really well for us. So yeah, that's why we switched to that, and um, yeah, it's a fun little just unique difference.
Yeah, I actually use the mason jars on all my personal stuff, like I'll
Yeah.
and then I'll put like a little sticky on it, like whatever it is,
Mhm.
and then I'll
Well,
kind
that
of
was
cup them
that
later.
was
But
my biggest thing too. Is I was like, man, why is it that like we send someone a bag of coffee? Most people take that bag and throw it into a jar. So like, why not just give them a jar? You
yeah.
know, like cut out the bag that then they're just like ripping open, throwing it into, and then like maybe cutting out the like label so they know what it is in there.
So it's resealable and everything, like screw on lid or
Yep.
something. Okay.
Yeah, screw on lid. And I think like per jar, it's like 88 cents. So it's like under $1 for each jar. So it's like pretty affordable. I mean, we buy like, I think it was like 500 of them at a time. So like that's takes up a lot of space for us, which is why that loft is nice.
Yeah.
'Cause we throw all those boxes of jars up there, but it's like still fairly affordable. I mean, most coffee bags are cheaper, but I'm like, man, like anytime I buy a bag of coffee, I throw in a jar. So might as well just be the jar that everyone throws our coffee into. So
Right. Exactly.
yeah. So yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I'm sure people have like done like sourdough starter. I mean, people use the jars for all kinds of things, which is fun too, because like um, they'll tell me like I had one lady that like started planting stuff in them and did sourdough in them, and like they'll drink out of them. I mean, so it's kind of fun. Like you get to see your jars around, like being used for all kinds of stuff. So
That's hilarious. It's like my old house, Dad. We'd have like freaking jelly jars and like just
yeah,
everything we drank out of was like some jar that food or something
exactly.
it done came out of. But
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly right.
heck yeah, dude. Well, you have anything else you want to kind of add to it, or
No, man. I mean, I think again, like one, super appreciate you having me on, and it was fun to kind of reconnect and share where we're at progress wise. I just again would encourage anyone that's listening to, if they have questions about anything really of like starting a business, getting a roaster, financing space, like anything like that. I'm always an open book. I'll share roast profiles. I'll share anything with anyone. So if I can help people in their journey along the way, um, can avoid the mistakes I made and hopefully impart some knowledge along the way. I love connecting with people that reach out and be like, hey man, I heard you on the Coffee Runs Deep podcast and had all these questions. And I truly enjoy like connecting with people like, hey man, what are you doing? Like, how can I help? And so it's been fun. And so I appreciate the platform to be able to connect with people and hopefully help them along the way. So
heck yeah, dude. I definitely appreciate you coming on, and yeah, it's always cool to like. I feel like the community, at least for most people that I speak with,
yeah,
like it's so giving. Even like the roasters I speak to around here, like in my local area, and then
yeah.
even a lot of the roaster manufacturers, even like Loring, the people at Loring is super cool. Steve, he
Oh yeah.
actually from Mill City, he actually
Yep.
called me just a couple months ago, and like we literally talked for I think an hour and like 20 minutes. When I looked at the phone, I was like, how did Steve just like have this much time to give? But it's
Yeah.
like you're saying, it's that customer service, it's like And it wasn't even that I was inquiring about a roaster. He just saw a couple of my podcasts and he just called to actually just thank me for,
Yeah.
kind of having some of the people on and sharing their story. And I was just like, man, that's super cool, like,
Totally.
and he kind of told me his whole story, getting into Mill City and what he did before. And yeah, that dude's very particular about how he wants everything ran and like the customer
Yeah.
service. And
Yeah. And
so,
it really does show, man. I mean,
yeah.
like hearing that from you, like it is very apparent that like, the what's cool too, which I forgot to mention, was that like they do a like video, like a Skype essentially, where they will watch you roast for the first time. And so they'll do seasoning roast with
What?
you. Yeah. So they like walk you. There's actually two videos you do with them. The first is just to like make sure everything is calibrated correctly on your machine, make sure everything's operating correctly. And so they like, I mean, I turn the camera around and show them what I'm seeing, like, okay, adjust this, turn this down, like, okay, your gas flow is perfect, like your airflow is where it needs to be. So they walk you through all that, and then you do another follow-up video with them of like a seasoning roast, and they walk you through every step of the roast process and make sure that everything's working right and answer any questions. So, I mean, it's really like, especially for someone who doesn't have tons of like roasting experience prior, like I can only imagine like how beneficial it is to be like, oh, okay, like this is what I need to be doing. This is what this control does, and this is what this probe is reading, and all that stuff. So yeah, man, they really, I've been blown away by their customer service. I've been able to call them and be like, hey, this is, what's happening. Like, oh, you need different ports for your gas. Like you can buy, just all kinds of stuff. So yeah, their customer service is awesome.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
Heck yeah, dude. Well,
Mhm.
I don't know. We'll have to have you on a third time here. Maybe,
I guess so,
maybe
man.
when you
Maybe when
branch
I
back
open a
out into the
shop or
coffee
something.
trailer.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I feel like it's always been prophetic of like we end a podcast with a question, and then all of a sudden the next time I'm on, it's happened. So I don't know. Who
Yep, you
knows?
got a cafe.
I guess so, man.
Heck
Well,
yeah,
Rob,
dude.
I can't thank you enough, man. I appreciate your time and for having me on. So, yeah, take care, buddy.
I appreciate it, Tyler. Later, buddy.
Later.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Coffee Runs Deep podcast. I truly hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to support the podcast, please check out my Patreon. I'm in the process of revamping it, and we have some cool things we're going to be giving away very soon. Love you all, and thanks for listening. We are back.